September 12, 2016, Wissahickon School Board of Directors meeting. Please come to order. Mr. Coleman, will you please roll call the board?
Thank you. Mr. Antonio.
Here.
Mrs. David.
Here.
Mrs. DiPietro.
Here.
Mr. Frank.
Here.
Mrs. Heyman. Mr. Honeycutt.
Here.
Mr. Stoloff. Mrs. Walsh.
Here.
And Dr. Becker.
Here.
8 present currently. This 9th is, I'm sure, coming shortly, and all present and accounted for. Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, everyone, to all our wonderful guests and visitors, new faces and familiar faces, to our regularly scheduled public board meeting of the Wissahickon School District Board of Directors. As a note, the board met in executive session prior to our gathering this evening and prior to this meeting to discuss issues related to personnel and also legal matters. Moving forward to the next item on our agenda, we have honors, recognitions, and celebrations. Mrs. Ross.
Good evening. This evening I have the pleasure of introducing our over 33 new staff members. Not everyone was available to attend this evening, but we welcome all of you to the Wissahickon School District and to the best district in the county. Your energy for learning and understanding our students and their passions makes you a wonderful addition to the staff. We have no doubt that after the many meetings that we've had, interviews and demonstration lessons, that you will make a difference in the lives of our students and in the field of education. I would also like to extend a word of thanks to our current staff members and teachers. After speaking with many of our new hires after their first few days on the job, I learned from them that you were warm, welcoming, and extremely helpful as they navigated their way through their first few days in the district. To our new hires, I recommend that you speak to as many of them as possible in your building. Learn from them. They have so much wisdom to share with all of you. So this evening, I'd like to introduce those members of the staff and faculty who are here this evening. As I mentioned, some were unable to attend, but we'd like to recognize all of our new hires. I'll start with Kim Bender. She's the behavior specialist district-wide. Catherine Meyer, she just was hired as our communications specialist in the administration building. Michael Reimel, Bluebell Elementary child-specific assistant. If you're here, you can stand when I call your name. I'm sorry. Brett Storm, Bluebell Elementary special education teacher. There we go. Jacqueline Gallagher, Bluebell Elementary grade 5 teacher. Alexandra DeMeglio, Bluebell Elementary grade 4. Sierra Gilligan, Bluebell Elementary grade 3. Alexis Vanderslice, Bluebell Elementary special education teacher. Jean Marie Mercier, Bluebell Elementary ESL teacher. At the high school, we have Eric Andrus, high school child-specific assistant. Bruce Fleming, special education teacher, also is an assistant football coach for the district. Stephanie Woods, high school business education teacher. Dan Zimmerman, TV studio teacher. Erica Cassiello, high school life skills teacher. Alexa Borkowski, English at the high school. Jacqueline Deesh, she's a biology teacher at the high school. And Joanna Hofstetter, biology teacher at the high school. At Lower Gwinnett Elementary, Terrell Halsey, child-specific assistant. Kimberly Brooks, Lower Gwinnett secretary. Allison Brocious, Lower Gwinnett Elementary, grade 5. At the middle school, Kelly Broadbent, middle school German teacher, and Sarah Kane, the French teacher at the middle school. don't believe either of them are here. Danielle Kasich at Shady Grove Elementary, teaches kindergarten. Caitlin Mateo, Shady Grove Elementary, autistic support teacher. Jared Robbins, Shady Grove Elementary, child-specific assistant. Greta Tham, grade 3 teacher at Shady Grove Elementary. Capri Tillman, Shady Grove Elementary, grade 1. And Stephanie Wise, she is at Stony Creek, and she's teaching kindergarten this year. Molly Boyle is teaching grade 4 at Shady Grove Elementary School. Gianna Esposito, grade 1, Shady Grove Elementary. Kim Bell, lunch assistant, Stony Creek Elementary School. Kim Conrad, Stony Creek Elementary's child-specific assistant. Rachel Stern, grade 3 teacher, Stony Creek Elementary. And Rachel Sutton, Shady Grove Elementary lunch assistant. Let's have a round of applause for our new staff. Thank you and welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rossi, and welcome everyone. And thank you in advance for all that you do for the students. Next on the agenda is report of the student board representatives, and we will begin that meeting our student reps at the next board meeting. We very much look forward to that. Number 4 on the agenda is public comments. And I believe David Bosson? And just as a reminder, it is the policy of the board not to engage in dialogue or debate during public comments. Please know we are listening and paying attention, and when appropriate, the administration will be posting answers to your questions and comments on the website.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is David Vossen. I live at 1616 Claudia Way in Lower Gwinnett, PA. And I wanted to address the board regarding the Rachel's Challenge anti-bullying program that was presented in the middle school and high school last week. In general, me and many parents in the community very much so favor anti-bullying programs and are very supportive of them. But with this program that had content regarding the Columbine school shootings, including audio tapes of 911 calls regarding this, had an unintended effect, and for several students left them in tears, from what I understand during the presentation, extremely upset, and there was no parent opt-out of this program. I don't feel as a parent that I really got the right notice of the difficulties that could be in this program. I would not have opted my son out of the program. I would have just been better prepared to talk with him afterwards about this. Instead of thrust in, as many of my neighbors and friends were, having conversations on gun violence, school safety, suicide, and other things that have happened in the community over the last couple days with a subset of the students here. I have a few suggestions for the board. First, I think a parent engagement or involvement team in an anti-bullying effort would be a very good idea. I don't know that this would necessarily screen this one out or have any input on it ahead of time, but this one's about generating acts of kindness that actually continue through the community and create a chain reaction. And that's a really good message, and I actually think we should try to involve the community more in that. Secondly, I'd like you to think about communications, and I know you had a communications survey result that showed improved communications. What I asked the board to think about is, are communications improving good overall, meaning more of them and general things, or are we doing a better job at communicating the difficult issues? And I'm not sure we're quite to where we need to be in terms of communicating those more difficult issues. And I would suggest that maybe thinking about additional change management training, which is a little bit different than communications, might be a really valuable thing to think about in the school district and with teachers overall. And that was all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other blue sheets, correct? Next, report of the Secretary, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you very much. We present for approval the August 15th, 2016 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion's passed.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that that is a 9-0 vote with attendance of Mrs. Heyman as well. And the last is the meeting dates, which are September 26th and October 10th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. in the administrative offices. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Report of the treasurer, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. There is no report.
Next report of the board president, which is me. I'd like to begin by introducing Kyle Berman from Fox Rothschild, who is our solicitor this evening. Welcome. Next, I would like to just mention that the August board meeting, district goals, and ongoing district priorities were presented and discussed. All board members were in attendance. For those who are unfamiliar with these goals and priorities, they are on the first page of your packet. And this evening, we'll be bringing forward a recommendation for approval of these district goals for 2016 and 2017 and ongoing district priorities for document 1. May I have a motion for approval of district goals 2016-2017 and ongoing district priorities per document 1?
Moved.
Second. The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next, report of the superintendent, Dr. Crisfield.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to say that the opening of school has come, and we are now in full force into another school year. The preparation for that included all of our new teachers who we met tonight 2 weeks prior, and then the entire staff was welcomed back the week prior. And then on that Monday, most of our students, and by Thursday, all the students, including kindergarten, were back, and it was a very successful opening. I visited each of the schools that first day. People were smiling, busy, lots of activity, and all in all, we're up to a great start in the 16-17 school year. Just as a matter of note, next meeting will be an update on the annual 10th day official enrollment. We've had about 9 days. The 10th day is actually tomorrow. So at the next meeting, we'll compile all that and show where we are compared to this time last year. And also next meeting will be the annual update on all of the construction projects that took place over the course of the summer. And that's it for the opening of school update. The next part of my report will be a presentation on the Achievement Gap 10-year attack plan. That requires a little bit of setup. Okay, so tonight is the first time that we, in a public board meeting, discuss what has been percolating and been created over the last 12 or 15 months. We've discussed this topic in various times at committee meetings, including committee meetings, at numerous leadership team meetings. I'm happy and grateful to see the leadership team here tonight showing their support. And the concept here is an honest and open look at a topic that can be controversial and that can be emotional at times. So we're going to try to strip that away and just look at it in a very factual way and in a very earnest way. We have academic goals in the district, of course. We have extracurricular goals as well. We want to see lots of participation. We want to see lots of sports, lots of arts, performing arts, visual arts. All of that is important, clubs. And then we have character education goals, referenced earlier tonight with Rachel's Challenge, albeit with some issues that we need to resolve with the rollout of that. But to be sure, and I agree that the concept of being nice to people and doing things that make other people feel good and to be helpful to others is a really laudable goal. And that's something that we pay a lot of attention to in this district. But for tonight, the emphasis is on the academic. And our three ultimate academic goals are pretty simple. Each and every student will strive for excellence. Each and every student will experience academic success. And each and every student will succeed in life after high school. Lots of things can go into those three goals. They all get at, though, the academic experience of our students. The extracurriculars related to these things, character education is certainly related, but tonight we're talking about academics. How do we plan on meeting the needs of each and every student? And I use that phrase purposely because we talked about what phrase would capture the essence of this, the spirit of this. And the spirit of this is we're going to pay attention, we're going to continue to pay attention to each and every student. The first way to do this is in every classroom, every day, we have a focus on differentiated instruction. It's a known and proven way to meet the needs of each student in the classroom. Students come to a classroom with different levels of preparation. They come to a classroom with different learning styles, and our teachers are already very good at this. They continue to get professional development in how to get even better at differentiating the experience in the classroom so that no matter where the student is and no matter what his or her needs are, they're going to be met. Another way, this is going to be slightly new, but a way we're going to achieve our academic goals is we're going to have what I'm calling a mission uptick in our look at and our preparation for post-graduation time. We do a very good job at placing our students in college. Now, all you have to do is look at the college acceptance list every year. It's impressive. And there's lots of impressive colleges and universities in this area. And we send our kids to them and to others. I think we can get great at that. I think we can put a slightly more emphasis on the best fit so that we know that each of our graduates is where he or she is best likely to succeed. So that involves a lot of things. That involves establishing relationships with universities and colleges so that they know us, not just in the geographic region. We will continue to send students to all the really great schools in our region for sure, but there are others out there. And another part of this is that it's not necessarily the case, this is an opinion now, that college is always the best option. There are a lot of other really good options for somebody, which is a good fit for them, and maybe college is an option later. But you can be service-oriented after high school, military, other services, other types of service. You can get vocational training, and if that's a good fit for you, why don't we make sure that happens? And the key to all this is it's hard for schools everywhere to gather data with regard to what happens post-graduation. We have a sense that our students are well prepared for college. Anecdotal stories, some qualitative data, but we're going to get better at gathering that to make sure they are actually prepared for their college experience or their post-graduation experience. We're going to gather data so that we know that they actually graduate. This is a nationwide problem, actually. Lots of students, far too many college students spend 4, 5, 6 years without a degree. Okay, we need to make sure that's not happening to our students, and if it is, why? Then you can kind of see how that's going to be a difficult data gathering effort. Doesn't mean it's not worth it, it's just going to be complicated. And I've challenged the high school, and I'm proud to say that Dr. Blair has accepted the challenge to get her people on board with this best fit mentality. We have good, excellent people in the guidance department at the high school, and we're going to get even better at that. The third part of the academic goals and how we're going to achieve this is we're going to officially launch tonight, but we've been laying some groundwork for a while, an Achievement Gap 10-year attack plan. All of those words are purposeful. Achievement Gap, and we'll define that here in a little bit. 10-year because this is going to be sustained. This is not some sort of fad. This is not something that's going to go away overnight. This is a long-term commitment to this topic. And it's an attack plan because I do feel like this is urgent. And I do feel like it's serious enough to treat like a fight that we're going to have to wage. For the purposes tonight, the Achievement Gap is defined there. And there's various definitions of it, and I don't think we need to get hung up in the words, but it's just in its rudimentary form, kids from certain demographic groups achieve at lower levels than others. That's not judgmental, it's just factual. And the sooner we just stipulate that, we can start working on it. Nothing to be gained from looking backwards or finger pointing as to why this happens, what may or may not have happened in the past. We're not going to do that. I don't see any value in that. We're moving forward in a very positive, united, committed way. And here's our philosophy. There is no one single overnight solution. I love that quote up there from a writer who studies these things. And he's, of course, talking about more than just achievement gap in schools. He basically lists all of society's ills there. But the point is, you have to change things in hundreds of small ways, not in one big way. You listen to a politician who tells you that they have the solution to all of the school's ills and all of our country's education problems. I'm telling you what, he or she does not know what she's talking about, because they don't. It's lots of tiny little efforts sustained over time, reviewing the effectiveness, trying more. Everybody's committed, everybody's motivated to succeed. So we're just a school. We're just a school district, really. 4,500 students every year. We can't deal with all of society's ills, and we're not here to try to. But we are here, and we are prepared to address the needs of each and every student in Wissahickon every year. Multiple angles. It's not just one place. We'll see that here in a minute. 10-year focused commitment. Flexible plan. We're going to try lots of things, and we're going to admit when they don't work, and then I hope we're going to be astute enough to not keep doing them. We'll try new things. Keep researching, keep reevaluating, reassessing, and adjusting as necessary. And then a key part of this will be communicating. Community meetings, I've already had many of those with different representatives and constituents. Those will continue. I'm going to set up what I'm calling a advisory council, APAC for lack of a better military sounding phrase, but it's going to be consisting of representatives from different community groups who can get the word out and also bring the word in, tell us how things are going, and give us some insights. We have data teams at each of the schools. They've been pretty good over the years. Now they're going to start getting great. And then in this forum, there'll be regular updates and by either me or Mr. Abmont or the team captains who you'll see in a minute. There is history here of dealing with the achievement gap. Prior to this last year, so prior to the time I got here, there were many sincere efforts at it, at trying to identify it, trying to remediate it. Some were formal, school sanctioned, some were informal, some were successful, and some weren't. But the problem is, not enough of them were sustained. There are still some groups around. We still have a decent record of pushing kids into, say, higher level classes in the high school, but not everywhere else. We're just going to learn from all those prior efforts, embrace them, honor them for what their intent was, and then build off of them. Last year was a year of observing, talking, listening, researching, analyzing. The leadership team is tired, I think, at this point. If they are, they're not willing to admit it, of hearing me talk about this, because it took that long to figure out what all the things that were tried, and also all of the angles of this thing. It's such a deep and multifaceted problem. So this year, starting now, we're launching the attack plan. Now, for some data. Not going to go, I'm almost drowning in data, I have to admit to you. And I'm going to enlist some people's help, some experts here in our staff for that matter, to help me with this. But meanwhile, I have a little bit of data for you tonight. Don't worry, not too much. This is our demographic picture as of the close of last school year in terms of the ethnicity breakdown. You may have already seen this before, and I won't read out all the numbers, but you see minority groups that are, and those definitions, by the way, come from the state, and you'll see the different number of students in a couple other slides because these snapshots are taken at time. Roughly 4,300, 4,400 students pending, and you see the breakdown. More categories. ESL, English as a second language, free and reduced lunch, special ed, and gifted. And you see the percentages of the total student population of each of those groups. So those numbers will come back, by the way, in a little bit. Some takeaways. This is the stuff that makes us strong. This diversity is actually great for us. It provides challenges for sure, but it makes this district a great place to work and live. The data that we have has limits, and I threw up an example out there that where free and reduced lunch is a weak proxy at getting at a student's, the income level of the student, of the house where the student comes. It's a decent proxy for income. And any other data out there is kind of harder to get and harder for us to manipulate. And there are crossovers for sure. For example, 50% of our black students and 60% of our Hispanic students are in the free and reduced lunch program. So if something is at work because of one of those demographic factors, then it could be confusing, or there could be mitigating circumstances by another factor. So we have to kind of almost multiply regress out the variables as best we can. Now, the data for the achievement gap, we have, as I said, just reams and reams of data. We tried to break it down into 3 categories: classroom achievement disparities, standardized test disparities, and program placement disparities. I'm just, tonight, one example from each. Got plenty, and if you're interested, well, happy to share. Here's the classroom achievement one. So the gap, the grade point average data from the high school past 3 years. The left-hand chart, this first one, looks at students on free and reduced lunch versus everybody else. You can see the disparity. As we go through all of this, we don't have the answer to why. None of this is trying to get at the cause. A lot of this is correlative, meaning that if you're on free or reduced, then you're less likely to have a high GPA. But we have to research and try things as to get at the why. And then the second way of slicing this is by ethnicity. And you can see that there's a disparity. Now, here's an example of a crossover variable. If you are in a higher upper level class at the high school, either honors or AP, you get a little GPA boost from that experience. So this shows a number of things, one of which is there might be a disparity in who's in the higher level classes so that they don't get that 0.1 or 0.05 bump. All stuff we have to take a very close look at. Yes. Weighted being, if you get, just for everybody's purposes, you get a little boost for being in honors and a little bigger boost for being in AP. Now, just to be clear, that is the high school. We have achievement disparities elsewhere. We're sampling all the grades. This one here is the standardized test results from grades 3 to 8. PSSA, only math, for past, 4 years, broken down by ethnicity. The picture tells quite a story. You don't really even need any explanation of this. Other than, I hope everyone in the room is disturbed by this. I'm sure that we all are. And I hope that you can agree with me that now we need to start thinking about why this is and what we can do to fix it. We haven't in the past, all that often, publicly reported the results this way, by the way. Much the same way as we don't typically report them by school. We don't need finger pointing, and we don't need to do it out of context. The context here tonight is these are each and every one of our students, and no matter what category they may fall into, we're going to do what we can to make sure everybody experiences success. Here is some information on program placement. For this, I chose the gifted, quote-unquote, program, somebody else's phrase, not mine, and special education program, both K to 12. So you can, these in chart form shows some, in my opinion, some numbers that we need to pay attention to.
Jim, I'm sorry, can you just hold this slide for just a minute?
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out,
Yeah,
what's the bottom?
The bottom is special education.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
It.
and
Yep.
the top is gifted. and broken down by ethnicity in this case, and you see that, I'll take an example, Hispanic kids in the gifted program totaled 6. So that's 1.62% of the gifted students. Yet Hispanic students are a little over 6% of our total population, so something's amiss there. Black students are roughly 10% at the time this was mid of last year, and they're only 1.89% of the gifted population. And same with special education, there are disparities. When you see that there's more of that ethnicity in a program or less than their total population would suggest, that's something to look at.
Jim?
Yes.
You have also a free and reduced price lunch breakdown of this?
I do, yes, somewhere.
Is it a similar?
Not here tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll see. I think it's a little more pronounced even, actually. I'll get that, though.
Jim,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
For the benefit of me, but everyone in particular, generally, what classifies as special ed? How is someone categorized special ed? What's the...
Well, this would be if you actually, in the end of the process, have an IEP, individualized education plan, that tells the educators that are involved with you how to best enable you to access the education program. So there's lots of steps along the way before you get an IEP. If you are experiencing learning difficulties first, we have some interventions that are non-special education, and we wait and see if those have had effect. If they aren't, go to the next step, maybe more intensive interventions. If they haven't, then you might be evaluated for special education to see if there might be a learning disability that might be blocking you from having the success that we need you to have.
So it's fair to surmise then that the definition special ed is sort of the last step in the process, that you could have children that are on the cusp there that would not be included in this.
Yes, that's an excellent point, because one of the most important, and the leadership teams know this because they're tired of hearing me say this too, but there's a band of students in our schools, every school district, that are not special education but not yet achieving at a high level. So in other words, they either don't have a learning disability or they just haven't been diagnosed with one yet. So those students we need to pay particular attention to, because special education students often have lots of resources devoted to them because they need it, which makes sense. But we need to be sure we don't forget about that other band of students, and whatever percentage you want to call it, who aren't achieving at a high enough level but aren't technically in one of these programs. Okay, there's some research here, and sort of alluded to earlier that the dominant demographic variable is income level. The other variables matter, and they're correlated, and all of them inform the plan, and nothing's going to be ignored. But I can't emphasize this enough, that the research shows that the dominant demographic variable is income level. And remember, we don't really have a great measure of that. We have a decent measure. The research of the profession that we meant, and the income level of the household. So it's important to use the right phraseology. We don't say, for example, the phrase poor students. That's not what we want to convey. We want to convey a student who comes from a lower income household. Seems like it's semantics, but it's not. It's a very important distinction. One of the keys, and research shows us, is a growth mindset. Every single adult involved with each and every student needs to believe in the potential of each and every student. Until we get to that point, we know we're not going to get to the point where we want to eventually end up. And then also, research is showing more recently that relationships are key. We're really paying attention to this in our district, where we are out to have some adult in the building know something about each and every student. I don't want to hear any stories about students flying under the radar and you not knowing that there was a traumatic event in their household. Now, it's a little easier at the elementary level because you have your 25 or so students, and that's that. But middle and high school as well. I want something known about each and every student, and it doesn't fall just on the guidance counselors either.
And before you go to the president, can I just make a comment? The achievement gap that we are discussing here tonight is, just from the data, you can see it's significant and it's been persistent. It's not just in Wissahickon, it's in school districts across the country. Again, also significant and also persistent. For us as a district to sort of tackle this challenge of reducing and hopefully eliminating the achievement gap, it's sort of predicated on the notion that the achievement gap is there not because kids living in poverty, kids of certain demographic groups cannot achieve. Right. It's that as a system, there are potentially supports, services, attitude, perception, whatever, that we can improve to unlock that potential, to allow them to achieve. And when we're talking about achieve, it's not necessarily that they're all going to be gifted. No. We're talking about being proficient at a grade level in reading and math, which shouldn't be perceived as like some unattainable bar. And that, again, regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of your family background or demographics, that with the right supports, with the right focus, with the right attention, we as an educational system working together can have all those kids achieve grade level proficiency.
Absolutely. And we actually, I would expand it maybe even in addition to grade level proficiencies, which is certainly the minimum. We're looking to have every student feel good about themselves, feel comfortable in school, and feel like they are achieving success in their definition of it as well. So there's those core competencies that we want for sure. And then we want somebody who really loves video or loves music to go for it and feel like they want to be engaged with that and that they're a member of the school community. Very important. Okay, so the attack plan has some definition, which I think we can get to here. And this is something that was shown at BC, at the Curriculum and Technology Committee. And this is a graphic that is intended to show the relationship between the achievement gap, which is in the middle there, and all these other sub-gaps. There are a bunch of different gaps that we have over the last 10 to 12 months identified as very possibly contributing to the achievement gap. So the achievement gap itself, and we already went over this, it's defined that way. It's just very simple, but powerful and important. So what are some causes of this? We don't know for sure, but we have some hypotheses in mind. We believe there's an attendance gap, and the data is starting to show us that. Now for each of these sub-gaps, there's the co-captains on the leadership team are listed because staff members and anyone else interested are welcome to contact them for more information. They are developing teams, they're gathering research, they're certainly cataloging ideas, and they're going to bring them all to the leadership team meetings, and we'll talk about them. In this case, the definition is obvious. Some kids miss school more often than others. And sometimes it's correlated to certain demographic groups. And we know that missing school is bad for achievement. So we're going to do some things to fix that. That's one possible cause. There's another possible cause. Thank you. Behavior gap. We know from data that students from certain demographic groups are more likely to be disciplined for behavior-related reasons. Why that is, we don't believe we have anybody who is consciously doing this. We believe that there are either behaviors that merit the discipline or behaviors that are misinterpreted. So we got to fix that. Another possible cause. We know we have a communication gap. We know, and it's not just as easy as, okay, well, English isn't spoken in that household, although that is an easy one. There's evidence that communication with parents or guardians from students from certain demographic groups is less effective. So we're going to try some things to fix that. Another hypothesis is that there's a confidence gap. This one is a little qualitative in nature and going to be tough to identify with numbers, but it's very real. Discussions with students and guidance counselors show us that students from certain backgrounds are less likely to be confident enough to take some risks. That risk might be going for a higher level academic class. It might be going for some sort of extracurricular activity. Personal risk of some other sort. And there are ways we can fix that. Here's a short example. If you don't quite have the confidence that you can handle the math, say, in upper level honors biology or on honors level science, we can pre-teach that. We can pre-teach you the material, we can reteach you the math, we can have tutoring programs set up, we've actually already started that process, so that we get at your confidence. And we also have conversations, and we can make more known what all these supports are for you. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to stay at this. We also believe that there's an engagement gap, because we see it. This we see with our own eyes. This gets at the other thing. I want to get those core competencies, but I also want every student to feel like they're part of the school community. Sense of belongingness. Kind of hard to quantify that, but all you have to do is take some counts of who's involved with what. And we know there's differences. It could be because they have to work, or because there's some other issue to take care of their younger sibling, or something. Well, maybe we can do some things to fix that in terms of offerings, activities during the day, or before school, or something. I don't know. Lots of different ideas to try, and hopefully some will stick and succeed. What else is contributing to the gap? We know this, we already spoke about it. This is enrichment, otherwise known as gifted in some people's minds. Not mine. I like the enrichment gap, but in any case, we know there's a gap. We already saw that. And that's in the program. Every teacher has tools in his or her toolbox to differentiate so that when a student demonstrates mastery of a topic, they can give them something else to go deeper into that knowledge. Now we're talking about that 10% or so in the gifted program or the enrichment program. What else causes it? Entrance gap. This one is intuitive to all of you, I'm sure. And we've heard it across the news. Whenever there's talk about pre-K and quality pre-K, we absolutely observe students coming to us in kindergarten, different levels of readiness. We can demonstrate it. We have a kindergarten screening or interview tool that suggests who might be a good candidate for some summer pre-teaching and readiness, or the DIBELS, which is a way to measure reading levels. Probably twice the number of students from certain demographic groups are in need of immediate. We haven't even had our hands on them yet. What else could cause it? We know there's a special ed gap, and we talked about that. There's a transfer gap. And this one is a little presumptuous. We have to sit here and say that the Wissahickon schools are better. But by the way, students who transfer into our school district are almost always behind in some fashion. Now that could be because we're getting students transferring in from areas that have a lower quality education system, okay. Or it could be that we're just so good at what we do that our standards are so high that we have to get people caught up. Either way, this is a gap. So we need to know about it, and then we need to do some things. For new student, here, supports, we don't wait until they demonstrate a need for it, we sort of presume. And then maybe, this one, I don't know, it could be out there a little bit, but I happen to believe in it, that could be a wellness gap where students from certain demographic backgrounds are more likely to have wellness-related issues. And all of these could affect learning. Just having toothaches every day in your school. If you're in class with a toothache, you're not going to be prepared to learn as much as your peers. Or if you have some other wellness-related issue. Now, there are a couple effects of the achievement gap. Here's the great news for tonight. We do not have the graduation gap effect. We graduate almost every single one of our students from high school. So I really think that the staff of the schools, K to 12, deserve a great deal of credit for that, because that is not easy to do. And you don't have to go too far to any other districts, like ours or otherwise, who have graduation gaps. We do not. But, as alluded to earlier, I do think we have an after high school life gap, where I do think we probably are going to find, and it's hard to get the data, that students from certain demographic groups are less likely to be successful after high school. We'll have a broad range of success, so getting admitted to Harvard is going to be valued equally to getting a certificate where you can go work for an auto mechanic and earn a decent living. Those are equal measures of success. But we just make sure everyone's having some measure of success. Okay. Now, coming toward the end, don't worry. And I even have a little warm fuzzy feast that obviously was not created by me or thought about by me to help change the mood a little bit. Why are we committing to a 10-year effort? Why don't we just try this, put in the books that we tried it, and move on next year to something else? Up there because we're trying to save some money. So the why is actually plain and simple here. It's because it's the right thing to do. And we don't really have to explain that or answer that question anymore. Each and every one of our students will be looked after to the best of our ability for 10 years, and we are going to do this. Next steps, execute the plan starting right now. Do all these things, technical things you're supposed to do. Circular, there's all sorts of forms and things and textbooks that show what you're supposed to do, but really, it's just going to keep doing it. We repeat it. And repeat the things that are working, stop doing things that aren't, and try all sorts of new things all the time. So I can take some questions from board, and maybe we can go audience after that. Yes, sir. You want to go there?
this entire presentation, is it available on our website?
It will be, yes.
Okay. And at the end of 10 years, assuming we're all here, will the plan will continue on at infinitum, right?
To the extent that it's still needed, absolutely. I hope it won't still be needed. I hope we will have closed the gap, but to the extent there still is a gap, I don't see a reason why to stop.
And I just wanted to clarify, when we say that this is a 10-year plan, not a plan that want to take 10 years to accomplish.
Right.
We want to accomplish it and then continue it and redo things that aren't working. Make it better every year and keep it going for the 10 years, not take 10 years for it to happen.
Right, a 10-year commitment. We have a sense of urgency about this, and I think it's an excellent point where we're going to try, we are already trying things now, we're going to try more new things, and as they work, we're going to celebrate those successes but not rest on those. We're going to keep going and keep trying, keep doing.
Dr. Crisfield, I want to thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome.
It was well thought out, and it covered a lot of really important issues in our district. But I do have a couple questions. So far, there have been a few actions taken. You have the 0 to 5 literacy initiative. I believe we're waiving physical fees, sports physical
yes.
fees, and is there tutoring in the libraries?
There'll be after-school tutoring available, yes, and pre-teaching.
And I don't know what I missed, but I was wondering if you could share with us how successful they've been so far, progress in those areas.
So far, on this 9th day of school, we don't have any data that shows how successful we've been on the tutoring part. We did get, this is just anecdotally, probably about 20 more students than we would have normally perhaps for sports, because perhaps it's a financial matter that getting a physical costs money. We don't know. Perhaps it's not understanding the process. Perhaps it's not being able to deal with a myriad of forms. But there was something at work that stopped those 20 kids from participating previously. But now we have the doctor come to our building, we set things up, and we have more kids participating. Now 20 is not a gigantic number, but it's a meaningful number to us because it's one of hundreds of things we're going to do.
And the 0 to 5 literacy initiatives has been in place for...
The 0 to 5 literacy initiative was actually started towards the middle of last year or something, and Ms. Heyman's helping us. And what this is a group of people who understand early childhood and the value of reading to kids between 0 and 5. So we have a team, Matt's spearheading the team that's creating a set of messages that's going to go out to all these families we've identified. It took a long time to identify the families in the area. We have another team of teachers who are actually spearheading an effort to be face-to-face meetings at events like the Ambler Farmers Market or some event. We're going to have people there just celebrating reading. We're partnering up with Anne Frank at the Wissahickon Valley Public Library. I mean, she's been an awesome partner with us in this, and you might imagine why she's interested in literacy. But moreover, she's volunteering her time. She just finished coordinating an effort where we got together all of the after-school programs in Ambler to kind of get on the same page, and whether it be Mr. Lenny's Homework Club or the Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA or the Stars or anything like this, make sure we have a place for every student who might need one. So that was sort of an illusion, like these programs have existed in the past, and a lot of good people are doing a lot of good work in these programs, but now we're going to take it to the next level and do some coordination so we know that every student who needs some help gets it.
Okay, I have a couple more questions.
Surely.
So in all the circles, you have the attendance gap, the confidence gap. How are the parents of the individual students that are identified in the gap being pulled into this whole process?
That's a good question. And the answer is they may not necessarily know that Johnny has been identified in the achievement gap, and therefore the following 10 things are going to happen to Johnny. What they will know is that we have identified trends, and we know we have gaps, and we have all these other new programs, and we're going to communicate that to and with them. And And to the extent that his or her academic program might change, then they'll be communicated the very same way. If on the individual level, if Johnny's already not at grade level, then his parents have been that has been communicated. But perhaps all these new ideas haven't because they haven't existed yet. But think of it like this way: when a parent gets like a PSSA report for their individual student, and I can't remember how it's phrased, but you get a sense of where your student is vis-a-vis others. Well, that's a conversation maybe at the parent conference or the principal or however you, and then the conversation should get to, what are we going to do to get Johnny up to grade level?
But something like the confidence gap might just be identified in a high school classroom, and that high school parent may not be going to a conference.
That's a tougher one. The confidence gap is an interesting one because it's so nebulous and it's so hard to quantify, but so very important. What that'll probably how that'll manifest itself might be conversations with the student and maybe with the parent about trying that high-level class. It's good, it's rigorous academic, and you love science. You just finished telling us you love science. Yes, I do understand you're a little nervous about the math. So here are all the things we have in place that are going to help with the math part of that. Like, well, you rock it at science, and here, with a little bit of work here and there in math, you're going to be right in the top echelon of that class. So it's one-to-one conversations, knowing something about every student. So you have to know that you love science. And then when you say, I just like to be in the lower level science, that has to set off some warning bells to us. Well, why is that? We know you love science. And what can we do for you to help you get in that higher level science class?
Last one.
Okay.
The numbers in the enrichment/gifted program, are there any changes coming up in the near future about how we're going to be including students or criteria for the gifted program?
Yes, there are. We're having some internal discussions, about ready to take some action on it, share it at committee level, and then formally introduce it, which will create a broader range of measures looked at when a student may or may not get into the quote-unquote gifted program. Again, I'm going to use this podium here to express my objection to that phrase, because in my opinion, each and every one of our students is gifted. So we have this program, it's enrichment for students who have really mastered that particular classes or that grade's material, fine. And we're going to, previously we used one rather narrow gate to see who could get in or out, and I do mean out also. And what we'll do is we have some ideas about how to get a broader, more representative sample of measures, so that if you're not particularly good at this measure, maybe there's some others that demonstrate your giftedness.
And that's going to be discussed in curriculum and technology?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the gatekeeping device. Right now, it's mostly an exam or a series of tests, and
it's a cognitive test, yeah.
Right. Perhaps you could get more teacher input. That
will absolutely be an element to it. We have to be careful, because just like it's difficult for fifth grade teachers, say, to recommend a sixth grade placement, some fifth grade teachers may well know exactly what happens in, say, higher level math. Some might not. So if Mrs. Smith says Johnny's a really good math student, okay, that Johnny was really good then fifth grade math, but maybe he is or is not ready for, say, algebra or something. So we have to make sure the teacher piece is in there for sure, but there's got to be a combination of things to give us a good composite picture.
I have one thing. So far I've noticed a couple of times that you really don't like the word gift.
I like the word gifted. I just don't like a gifted program.
Why don't we stop calling it the gifted
program? I
program?
asked the same question.
And why can't we just call it the enrichment
We sort of
program?
are inside our little district, we are, but statewide it's required. Each district has to have a gifted program. Leadership teams, I know they're probably making faces at me right now because they're tired of hearing this conversation too, but I did ask that same question, and we will continue to have a gifted program. That's official.
But we can call it the enrichment program?
You better believe it.
Dr. Crisfield, just not so much a question as maybe a comment. I think, we've talked a fair amount about Achievement Gap. 2.5 years ago when I ran for board, it came on the heels of the closure of Madison and the concept of of what would happen to the kids within the Ambler community once they were out to the other elementary schools was always of concern to us as a community. I commend you and your staff for moving forward with the plan. It's been a long time coming. I know that over the years, achievement gaps and addressing achievement gaps and improving gaps and increasing achievement gaps has, been discussed and written about ad nauseum, but I feel like for the first time, at least in the last 2.5 years, we're actually putting some teeth behind it. And for me, being a kid out of high school that was not a college kid, I joined the military out of college, and it's probably the kick in the pants it took to get me motivated enough to go to college. But to me, there's two things in particular that are to me probably the most important. One is it's the fact that it's all hands on deck, using a Navy term, if you will. I appreciate that the leadership teams from the schools are here and the administration are here, because I know my expectation, and I suspect the rest of the board's expectation, is that this is going to be full engagement from everybody at the school level. We've placed a lot of trust, I think, and confidence in you and your administration and your staff on this, and I'm optimistic of where this is going to go. I think the other thing that's really important to me is each and every child. That we're not looking at kids in a performance category, that we're going to address the needs of each and every one of these kids, whatever it may be, because in a school district like ourselves, frankly, there's no reason why any child shouldn't be successful in whatever it is that term is for them after they get out of our school district. To me, and you said it plainly, that success can be defined differently, but to me, for all of our kids to be successful members of society, to have a successful life and whatever they deem to be success is most important to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes over 10 years, whether I'm here or not. I mean, I'm hoping I'll be here on this earth, but whether I'm up here on this board or not, I'm looking forward to what this ultimately turns out to be, and looking forward to hearing some success stories in the future. Thanks to all of you.
One other thing I wanted to bring out in regards to what Honeycutt was just saying about everything that's happening here and being on the school level, and with what Mr. Vossen was just talking about parent engagement. Really have to think of the way that we're going to bring all of that together, because I don't think successful without parent engagement. And I can tell you, when my daughter was little and we were in Philadelphia School District, and she was at probably one of the better schools in the Philadelphia School District, and we had our home back to school night in our auditorium, and it was packed. We had a brand new principal who came in from another district in the school and was actually shocked that she had anyone in the auditorium, because the school district that she was in, the parents weren't involved. So we have to make sure that everything that we're doing with this school is engaged, pulling the parents in, because the only way the students are going to have success, parents, to be involved in one way or another. Now, I know that we won't be able to get every parent involved just because of where they are in life, but I think that we have to try and figure out the happy medium where we can bring the parent engagement in, communicate with them enough. That's always a hot topic with in order for this to be successful. I think that that's one of the things back in there too.
The board?
Dr. Crisfield, I know we usually do public comments at the end of the meeting, but because the slides are up,
I like it.
if anyone in the, audiences, anyone out there has any questions for Dr. Crisfield while the slides are here, you're welcome to ask any questions.
Better not be any over here.
Do you want to go to the podium or just? So I want to ask.
Yeah, sure. Come on up.
And just state your name and your birth date. It's her birthday today.
And I'm sharing it with all of you. I do have one question. If you could elaborate the facilitation of the APAC in terms of how that's going to be facilitated, how it's who or what or how it's going to be executed, and what are some target audiences? Because I do agree with Tracy, and all of you know this. I do think that the parent engagement piece is absolutely huge. I think that we need to customize this for our district. When you talk about national achievement gaps in other school districts, the NEA has come back and said that you have to look at your own district and find out what works for your district. And we have a very distinct district. Definitely diversity. As I've always said, historically, the families that live in this district have been here for generations. So I think that's a little different than other ones. I think there are systemic things that need to be addressed. So I'm just curious how you're going to have that APAC executed, who your target audience is.
Okay, I think everybody got a gist of that question. The APAC, the Attack Plan Advisory Council, will meet directly with me, Mr. Abmont, quarterly or more frequently if need be. And it is intended to be representative of different groups in the community, be they demographic groups or maybe by age, by business, however, get as best a cross-section as we can. And it's nice because I can take this opportunity. You, ma'am, are my first invitation to the APAC. As official as tonight, no one else is. So far, it's a committee of one.
Happy birthday, Carmina.
Yeah.
Who said that? Queen said that, Joe. Thank you. That was wonderful.
You can think about it, but if you want.
No, I'm going to take
Okay.
your offer.
I knew that was the answer.
Everybody.
So now we're a committee. Now you and I and the APAC will take care of these things. But the concept there is to do exactly what Ms. Walsh said, which is to make sure that voices are heard from different areas. We need to pay attention to history of the district for sure. We need to pay attention to how our message is getting out there, and if it is, and then how it's being received, and then we need to take that back and react.
Well, I'm going to say thank you, but I'm leaving. It's my birthday, so thank you very much.
Thank you for spending your birthday with us. Other questions?
Christine DeLorenas, Ambler. Usually I like to think out my statements more, but this is new information. I'm hoping that we're not just looking at our definition of success after graduation, but that we're not going to over-test to gather data in order to define progress. Instead of testing in whatever form, I would hope that the data collected is more unobtrusive and less direct with the student, that we're wasting education time in trying to evaluate them.
And the answer is, I think that's an excellent point. The answer is I have so much data already that I don't need to do any more testing in the meantime. Teachers will get very good at doing formative assessments, which is the simple 5-minute walk in, check in, walk out, ticket to leave type thing. That is formative, is intended to inform the teacher's instruction and strategies for the next day or that period or that class. But in any case, yes, we are aware of the general sense out there that the time spent on testing and the number of tests administered is a problem, and we do not disagree. Others? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have report of the solicitor, Mr. Berman.
Well, very briefly, my office has been working with the district to resolve matters, and we have 2 agreements that we're recommending that you approve this evening. They're appearing on the agenda, item 10A and B.
So moved.
Second.
The motions have been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Berman. Next, we report on committee meetings. Communications Committee, Mr. Antonio.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. The Communications Committee met last month on August 16th, and we talked about a bunch of different topics. For those who weren't in attendance and for the audience, I wanted to kind of quickly run through some of the high points. Mrs. Rawlings, during the meeting, presented us with the results of the communication survey that was sent out last, I believe, late spring. And in summary, in essence, we had close to 500 responses, which is a pretty big jump from the previous year's administration of the survey. And overall, 80% of the respondents characterized the district's communications as good, and approximately 90% of the respondents agreed that the district's communications have improved since the previous year. There are a bunch of other questions and a bunch of other data points, but those two kind of jumped out at me as well, which I think is great and a good sort of vindication of the efforts that the administration has engaged in, and with the board's support and sort of urging to improve communications district-wide with parents and the community. And there's also a number of suggestions for improvement, continued improvement in communications, which were part of that survey report as well, which Mrs. Rawlings and the rest of the team are going to board with. We also talked about the Alumni Relations Committee. This is the 50th anniversary, or 50th birthday, I guess, of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Wissahickon School District. And as part of that, there's some efforts to create an Alumni Relations Committee to kind of generate some spirit and excitement around the anniversary of the district. There's a whole bunch of activities planned for the Alumni Relations Committee, and you'll see and hear more about that as the year progresses. There's a bunch of stuff that's planned for homecoming, which is I think the first week of October. As part of the efforts to get the committee going, Mrs. Rawlings, I think you interviewed two alumni who were part of the first graduating class from the Wissahickon School District.
That's right. I believe
back
they
in
were
1966.
the third graduating class of Wissahickon after it was formed in 63. And so a video we're going to show you features two of those alumni. Would you like to show that?
Yes, please.
All right. This is a special year for the Wissahickon School District. 50 years ago, the school districts of the Borough of Ambler and the townships of Lower Gwynedd and Whitpain were officially established as the Wissahickon School District. As such, it's time to celebrate the past, present, and future of our amazing district. This year, we will be working with a new Alumni Relations Committee to organize special anniversary events and share stories about the history of Wissahickon, our alumni, former teachers and staff, and our proud Trojan traditions. Meet two of our alumni from the class of 1966.
Hi, I'm Karen White Dean.
Hi, I'm Lynn Smith Johnson.
And we are excited to be the class that represents 50 years of Wissahickon School District. My Whitpain Elementary School journey started in kindergarten in the basement of the 1895 building on Skipback Pike, where the police department was on the first floor. First through third grades were in the 1916 building, but in 1955 the students carried the entire contents of their class to the new Bluebell building on Symphony Lane. All of us attended junior high at Shady Grove for 7th and 8th grades, but our class was split in 9th grade as half of us attended Ambler Junior High School. We were reunited in 10th grade at Wissahickon High School, and we became the third class to graduate from Wissahickon.
There are a few memories of Wissahickon School District that I truly enjoyed. Football games were awesome. When I was in 10th grade, my sister, Ledley Smith at the time, she was the Trojan that ran through when the football team came out, she came out first and then they ran behind her. As I walked up to the podium to receive my high school diploma, I was so excited. It was amazing just going through the Wissahickon School District and all the fun and memories and all the lasting memories that I had.
Join us in celebrating the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the Wissahickon School District and learning more about our amazing alumni. The class of 1966 will be joining us for the September 30th Wissahickon versus Upper Dublin football game, and we hope you'll be there too. Stay tuned for more information via email and the district website.
Thanks, Mrs. Rawlings. In addition to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the district, there are a number of activities and events planned. One of the ones that Mrs. Rawlings had mentioned to me, and I'll ask her to give more details about, was I think it was like a tweet contest. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. The week of homecoming, which is October 10th, we are going to launch a Twitter contest, and we're going to challenge our faculty and students to write a tweet about why it's special to teach in Wissahickon and to be a student in our district. And they will submit their tweets. The student council will review them and choose the winners. And then, of course, we will be sharing those via our Twitter site and a number of other ways. And so we are going to call this challenge #WISTurns50. So we think this is very progressive, and I have to give Gary Abamont the credit. He came up with this idea. Also, in addition to the September 30th football game, where we do invite all community members to come and to wear gold, we're going to have a gold out that night for the golden anniversary, of course. We are going to have a wonderful homecoming celebration with a tailgate, and that evening we will be inducting new members to the Alumni Hall of Fame. So we hope that will be a special event and everyone is invited. That will most likely begin at 5:30 or 6, but more details will follow.
During the Communications Committee, we also talked about the idea of having a special logo to use in association with the 50th anniversary events. We looked at a few different concept designs, and the board members in attendance there sort of settled on one that is up for approval, sort of formal approval by the board for use in the 50th anniversary activities during the course of this year. So after a couple final updates, we'll have a motion and a vote on this. One other piece, sort of switching gears a little bit, that was discussed at the Communications Committee was the idea of incorporating community input into the district's efforts this year to update the master facilities plan. So we talked about the idea of convening a facilities discussion committee, maybe sort of like a different variation of the APAC, but this one oriented and focused on the conditions of our facilities and the information that we'll be reviewing as a board to update and refine a master facilities plan for the next several years. So we're still talking about how to execute the logistics of soliciting people who want to volunteer to be part of that committee, and then the selection process and the formation and the schedule of that. Information will be forthcoming, hopefully by next month's board meeting. And that's the committee report. Chock full of good stuff that you guys missed out if you weren't there, but hopefully you got a taste of it. Update. So with that, I guess we can take a look at the logo, and can I have, that's something that Dr. Becker, I guess, officially asked for a motion on?
So you can ask for the motion, and I'll follow up.
Okay. Can I have a motion for approval of the board to accept a recommendation from the Communications Committee for the 50th anniversary district logo?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
I do have one comment. I think that looks wonderful.
Thanks.
Any other comments? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion passed. Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Curriculum and Technology Committee, Mrs. Heyman.
Curriculum Technology at 5.
Thank you, Mrs. Hayman. Facilities and Transportation Committee, Mrs. Walsh.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. The Facilities and Transportation Committee will meet on September 19th at 5:30 p.m. in the administration offices. This meeting replaces the scheduled October 3rd, 2016 meeting. We did do this because we had to cancel the previous meeting. And everyone is welcome to come and please join us.
Thank you, Mrs. Walsh. Finance Committee, Mr. Honeycutt.
Yes, thank you. Actually, there is a Finance Committee meeting scheduled for September 19th at 6 p.m. It'll be right on the heels of the Facilities and Transportation meeting, so you're welcome to come join us and make a night of it. I look forward to having everybody there.
Just out of curiosity, 30 minutes will be enough? Finance? The finance is at 5:30 and, facilities is at 5:30 and finance is at 6.
Yeah, so generally what'll happen is if the facilities goes over, we'll hang on and then start the finance meeting. But we schedule it at 6 because if we do 6:30 and we finish facilities early, then we're half hour.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And we don't want to look at each other.
IU Legislative Committee, Mr. Stoloff.
Yes, the first meeting of the season will be on September 21st at 7:30 p.m. at the Intermediate Unit in Norristown.
Thank you, Mr. Stoloff. IU Board of Directors is myself. The IU Board of Directors met on August 24th, 2016. Highlights of the meeting were emailed to all board members. It pretty much was business as usual there, so I have nothing significant to report for the meeting beyond that memo. And the next meeting will be September 28th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at the Intermediate Unit. Next, we have North Monco Technical Career Center, Mrs. Hayman and Mr. Stoloff.
Joint Operating Committee met on August. Stoloff and myself were there. That one. We have a meeting, the Joint Operating at North.
Thank you, Mrs. Hayman. Policy Committee, Mr. Stoloff.
Yes, and the Policy Committee will meet on September 28th at 5:30 in this room. All are welcome.
Thank you. Next committee meeting minutes. I'm looking for recommendation for approval of the following committee meeting minutes, and that would be the August 16th, 2016 communications per document A2. And then in background, I'd like to bring forward a motion for approval of the August 16th, 2016 communication committee meeting. The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion's passed. Report on personnel, Mrs. Ross.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. I'd like to request approval of motions A, B, C, D, E, F, and G for documents B1 through B6, including 2 additional items on the blue sheet.
So moved.
Second.
The motions have been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Report on student and instructional activities, Mr. Abamont.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. I'm requesting approval of motions 13A, B, and C per documents C1 through C3. These motions include the following. One is a tuition contract in reference to a student in lieu of FAPE. We have a lease of the LG room at the Lower Gwinnett Elementary School by Head Start program. And we also have approval of the purchase of the AED devices to replace the current ones that we have in the district.
So moved.
Second.
Motions have been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion's passed. Report on finance, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. Request recommendation for approval of the required post-issuance compliance procedures as part of the district financing per document B1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Moving on, are there any other public comments this evening? Are there any additional board comments this evening? Once, all right. And I'd like to make a recommendation for approval of adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.